You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Rahu, and we got our astrologer extraordinaire, Brother Rahu. How you doing?
Brother, just watching the times, keep my head to the sky and ears to the street. How about yourself, brother?
Hey, man, I'm like I keep saying to you, man. I'm trying to get like you, man. I'm trying to figure it out.
Hey, that's why we got a podcast, my friends. We are here to figure it out.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Once again, thank you all for the support. Thank you for your contributions. As far as Push It Forward Media Group, you could find us on Instagram at Push It Forward. That's PUSHITFWD. You can find us on the web at PUSHITFWD.com. As far as Cosmic Convos, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's COSMICCONVO. On Instagram, that's Cosmic Convo. Make sure you like the post. Follow us on Instagram, and if you're checking us out on Facebook or on YouTube, make sure you follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you can know when we're dropping new content, when we're premiering new things, going live, different things like that. Make sure you get locked in like that. Brother Rahu, how can the people get a hold of you?
You can hit me up on IG or Facebook via Shechem Ra for right now. That's the best way. Or you can either go to Gmail at calipruciaastrology@gmail.com.
Okay. Indeed. Make sure you hit up Brother Rob, man. Like I said, man, we in uncertain times, so we need some certainty. All right, and astrology can definitely provide that for you. So definitely hit up Rob, all right? So yeah, we're at episode 5. We're doing a special edition episode. We usually drop on Wednesday, but we're going to drop this episode on Election Day. Because we got so many different things going on and stuff like that. So it only makes sense for us to, use the astrology to, leverage what we can see from the heavens, from the sky, and then leverage a little predictions and different things like that. And give you something to listen to while you're sitting there in the line casting your vote, right? Or whatever you're doing, even if you're not voting. You whatever it is, you can, be informed on, what's actually taking place or whatnot. So, but before we get into today's episode, let's, look at last episode. Got a lot of good feedback from it. Ice Cube has been heavy, in the media past couple weeks and stuff like that. So, a lot of people had a lot of questions about different things. I think, going and looking at the chart and different things like that help, provide some clarity as far as, his stance and, kind of, his, you can kind of see his disposition, and let the people decide if they, believe that he's sincere or not. From our take, from looking at the charts and everything like that, he, seems like a pretty consistent disposition that he's had, throughout the whole time that we've been, privy to him. What about yourself? What kind of feedback you've been getting?
A lot of people were surprised to the chart. Like I was too, because you don't see Cube and Virgo. I mean, like, it just doesn't match in your mind right off as an astrologer or someone familiar with astrology. But a couple people said they were really interested in his dasha periods because they saw that at 11 years old, 12 years old, that thing switched, right? And so his life took for a different turn at that point. So a lot of people know that want to really elaborate on that a little bit more. And I think we did it justice because it shows the consistency that in people's lives there are time periods that just are inalienable realities that change the course of events for the rest of your life, and that's just that happens in certain people's lives at very specific ages.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the Virgo didn't surprise me at all, because I don't know. I just, he doesn't, I see it, you know what I mean? It's like, he has, bravado, but there's a shyness there too. He's not like,
there is.
you know what I mean? He's never been like, hey, look at me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he's never been that guy.
Right. He didn't have that. Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
And whatnot. But, I think that, the Virgo kind of hits the nail on the head on it for me. But, I think a lot of people, was just, looking at it and, kind of, trying to figure out if, I don't know. I mean, it's weird. We're in a weird time, man. I mean, like, he been, just talking about, Cube, he's been political his whole career. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. And, a lot of people just kind of act like he just jumped out of nowhere and stuff like that. Right. I've heard, I mean, we're just in interesting times, man. I mean, these transits and all types of stuff, man, got people going crazy out here and stuff like that, man. But, just looking at Cube, man, looking at his chart, man, I think it was, it just, again, bringing objectivity to the situation,
Yeah, definitely giving you a good bead. He does have a very kind of internalized disposition in many ways, which would be the Virgoan kind of backdrop, if you will. But definitely a word master. All those planets that deal with mercurial energies. Definitely a word master. Man is very intelligent when it comes to creating bars. So bar none, you can see that all up and down in his destiny.
Indeed. So, from that episode, I don't have any questions from Patreon. Just a lot of feedback. A lot of people said they enjoyed the episode, but I don't necessarily have any questions or whatnot.
Let's dive in then. Let's get it.
Yeah, man. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode, our special edition. Tuesday, Election Day edition of Cosmic Convos. Let's jump into, we made a prediction. The prediction is out there, right? But, let's solidify it. We're right here. We're a couple days from the actual day, and we're looking at the skies. We're looking at the transit. So, let's talk about, what we see, transpiring between now and, we'll focus on Election Day, maybe, spew off into a little bit into intermediate time period. We'll do another show on actual Inauguration Day, because that's going to be interesting.
To say the least.
So we'll leave that on the table right now. But yeah, let's, what are we seeing here for Election Day right now?
The thing about astrology is, we say as above, so below.
Yeah.
And below here, we noticed that in the past, past month, probably longer than that, but for for sure within the past month, specifically, a month, 3 weeks, when Mercury went retrograde, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of conjecture and talk about this mail-in process, this absentee ballot. And we won't know fully the results, which would be indicative of a Mercury retrograde, right? Until Mercury is finished, right, with his exercise.
Yeah.
And he finishes, right? Here's the thing. When planets station, right, when they become stagnant or stop and turn direction, that is like a flagpole, right, that's been placed. And so, like a flagpole, if you ever play sports, you go past that pole, you score, right?
Yeah.
And so, planets are, you only got one planet really behind, which is Venus. Venus will come up and change speeds here very shortly. And, those planets will continue to do what they do. But the obvious thing is that from 3 weeks ago, right, Mercury takes that amount of time to do his deal. So within 3 weeks, we have an absentee process as far as the ballots are concerned.
Yeah.
On the day of election, he stations. So he says, I'm stopping with the retrograde. All of the things that have happened previously, right, will now be slung forward, right? Just like a slingshot. Retrogrades are like slingshots. You pull back and then you release, right? So on that day, right, on November 3rd, Tuesday, Mercury will say, I'm stopping and I'm moving forward. So that day, don't expect to count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't expect to sit back. You know how when we watch elections typically, which is electronics, media, Mercury, right? We normally sit back and we let the tallies count up, right? Which is Mercury, right? But this day, right, the tally says I'm stopping. I'm going to let you count, but you got to let me go forward first. You got to let me do my thing today. And then in about the next 3 to 7 days, you'll have your count. Right? And I say 3 to 7 days because Mercury is stopped and he picks up speed and momentum every day after that. So after about the third to fourth day, Mercury is moving, right? In fact, he moves quickly, faster usually, right? Because of the retrograde process. So when he picks up, right, 3 to 4 days, maybe at the worst case, because remember, these are ballots, right? So think about it like this. If you mail me something right now, my brother, right, just regular mail, because you didn't put it in any special envelope that gets it there any faster, right?
Yeah.
It takes at least 4 to 7 business days for intercontinental mail to reach from coast to coast if the mail is running normally. Now, I don't know about you, but my mail been tripping here lately, right? I get things delayed, right?
Man, I don't know my mail been so jacked up recently. I seen a mailman out there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, hustling. Yeah, I seen that 9 o'clock at night, still rolling the vehicle. I'm like, wow, man.
Come on, man.
And I mean, my mail ain't been coming on time. So this is outside of the scope of the election, right?
Yeah.
Within the election, you can imagine how many more things are added to that process, right? To the mailing process. So we're talking, I'm telling you, I'm thinking between 4 to 7 days after the election when the ballots will at least have some consensus of solidarity of the vote. Now, here's the thing, right? Because Mercury, throughout these last 3 weeks, is saying you're going to have people that had sent in ballots before that are still coming in after the effect. And that's where we're going to see Mr. Trump have some of his tissy fits, right?
Yeah.
When these ballots are still coming in. Well, it's not counted. It's not voted. Wait, you gotta wait. Right? So, right, this all will coincide and it'll continue until things shift. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But nonetheless, just expect that, right?
Yeah, he's
just
gonna
expect.
He's going to be like, the votes. The votes are incarnate correct. You know it. I know it. The Supreme Court knows it.
Right.
He gonna get a whole spill.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna be a fiasco. But things will straighten out, because at some point we will have a final vote. We will have a final count. Now, here's the crazy thing, right? Right? With Mercury retrogrades, right? It's almost like if you didn't count right the first time, you're going to have to count at least 2 times after. So it may be even another recount after, because all of this is happening. See, if it didn't happen during Mercury retrograde, I would be more sound to say, okay, you know what? It probably will be a delay, but it won't be a recount.
It's going to be a recount.
I think it's going to be a recount, because he's not going to acquiesce. He's not going to concede the throne, right? Easily, right? And we're going to talk about his dashas here in just a second and see what is really going on and what's cracking off.
Well,
but just keep in mind, folks, that day, right? Don't expect any kind of result on the count. Just know, right? You'll get a general juxtaposition, and it may even look like. Now, I said it may look like the numbers will kind of do that kind of dancing thing.
Yeah.
Right? And then you won't know until everyone be in suspense, right? And we're going to talk about why the nation will be in suspense here in just a second.
Well, I mean, that makes his that Supreme Court appointed position even more.
It's chess, not checkers, man.
Yeah.
It's chess. We play chess. We play checkers. It's not one man for one move for one move. What that one move countered 7 other moves, right? Throughout the whole process of him trying to get elected.
And I would say this. I mean, we said in the previous episode that, it looks like, Joe Biden is going to be the president. But I would say, I mean, just looking at his chart, and I think, you might even said it earlier on. I mean, under any normal circumstances, he would not be president.
No, he would not.
He would not.
Mm-hmm. This is karma. You can see something's beyond the normal conception of what should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so first of all, folks, just be mindful on that day. Expect long lines, right? Because Mercury is stationed. Now he'll be in motion after about 5 in the morning, right? He'll be out of that retrograde state. He'll be in forward motion, but it's on that day, so it's not going to be very quick. It's going to take a few other days for that motion to switch back to normal. But nonetheless, on that day, expect long lines, right? Because Mercury deals with what? Traffic.
Yeah.
Right? Deals with the flow of exchange of things. So just on that day, expect long lines. Expect people to be naggy, right? Because Mercury is trying to get out of that retro relook, rehash, review look process, right? And so it's coming out of being stuck. So just imagine, right? All these people are trying to line up, and of course, Trump is making this great claim that all these people are going to show up and show out, which I don't see how that could happen during a Mercury retrograde, or Mercury stationing going forward on that day. But we'll see, right? Again, just expect craziness in the polls, right? Things go haywire. It's still Mercury retrograde coming out of it. So, there are some people that say there is a week to 2 week effect after that still has a lingering, in Western astrology, they really point that out. Like there's a retrograde phase and there's a post retrograde phase, and might even hold some truth to that, right? Yeah. But again, on that day, if something just stops, right, and it's used to going backward, now it's going to go forward. Imagine driving. Imagine we're all in the same car as a nation, and we're stopping on the day that we're trying to do something. So it's like you're trying to write something in a car and you stop. Like, oh, wait a minute, right? I got to reorient, then I'll write again. So that's how it's going to feel, right, as a pulse for the country.
Indeed.
Let's look at Mr. Trump. Let's look at some dashas to kind of iron out what's going on here, because dashas are important to this whole process.
Let me pull. All right. Okay. So I got Trump pulled up right now.
All right. So Mr. Trump is in a Jupiter-Saturn Dasha period. Now, if you all recall, I mentioned before that Trump would be impeached. Right? I mentioned it, right? For the simple fact that I knew this would happen because of the Dasha periods that he's in. Now, he was elected during a Jupiter Dasha. Right? Jupiter is a very powerful planet for him, being that it rules the fifth and the eighth house. The eighth lord is the primal emphasis of Jupiter for Leos, but nonetheless, fifth house is a trine lord, so it does give it a lot of power. But nonetheless, right, in this Jupiter Dasha, right, he literally, you can see that he does come to power, but Jupiter also is the planet that literally will take him down from power. Now, Jupiter, right, is retrograde in his chart, which literally makes it strong and bright. It literally gives it a lot of emphasis in his life, right? So that he can literally start to begin to recapitulate some of the spiritual lessons that he's had in the previous lives and up to now. But whenever a planet is retrograde, a lot of times it literally is a planet that calls attention to the person's inner voice, right? When it comes to wisdom, knowledge, and things like that. So it's in Virgo, which doesn't do well, right? But nonetheless, right, he has a very strong chart in that the positions of his ascendant lord and such give him a lot of authority and ability to rise to fame. But in this Jupiter-Saturn Dasha, Jupiter and Saturn are in a 311 relationship, which is not bad, considering that sometimes, it's not a bad position in looking at them in relationship to how they are to one another. But Saturn is in the 12th house. Yeah. And that is something that is crucial to understand, even though it rules, right? The sixth and the seventh. And remember, the sixth house is enemies, right? Adversities, right? Challenges, obstacles, right? So Saturn, right? Jupiter, Saturn rules the house of enemies, right? Also rules the seventh house of partnership and business as well, but it rules the house of enemies. And, right, it's in the house of loss. Now, yes, I know the sixth lord in the 12th house is the Vipreet Raj Yoga, which literally can cancel some of the evils. But let me explain this to you, right? That's only, right, if other positions are in play. And he has used this to some degree, but at this point in time, it's about loss. It's about losing. It's about letting go, right? Remember, if someone's saying they're holding on to something and you see a period that says letting go, you can clearly see that there's a major lesson that's about to ensue for that person in that given area. So it's time for him to what? Let go. Yeah. Now, again, right? The 12th house is a house of sacrifice, surrender, right? Giving into the powers that be, letting things flow, getting out of the way of the supreme being, letting go and letting God, as they say, right? The Christians, right? So this is not who he is. This is not how he's designed, right? He says it himself. I'm not going to acquiesce to that decision. I'm going to fight. I'm going to contest. I'm going to make issue. So again, showing that, and again, the man is saying like he knows he's already what? Lost. And if you're talking loss and we're talking 12th house emphasis, we can clearly see that this man is on the way out. Right? Not hard to see. Now, also looking, right? Remember, if you're in a position of power, and he's already been impeached. I said he would be impeached. I didn't say he would be run out of office. I said he'd be impeached. Yeah. Right? And he was. Now, that impeachment creates kind of a stain, if you will. Right? And Jupiter ruling the fifth house, right, creates the emphasis and the need, right, to use his intelligence. But the eighth house says it comes at a cost. It comes at a price. So during this Jupiter period, everything that he's dealing with is going to come with some recompense. Something that he's done in the past will have to be brought out and highlighted as a literal lesson for him to gain knowledge, because Jupiter is about knowledge. Leos gain through challenges and trials and tribulations by transforming their intelligence, right? So this is the lesson that he's in. And again, showing that that particular Saturn is empowering the sixth house because it aspects back to the sixth. The Lord of the sixth is looking at its own house. So this again is a time where you can really see that his enemies are on his tail. And if he's literally, he's at the point where Saturn is saying, hey, I've given you as much as I can. Now you're going to have to pay the piper. Now you're going to have to literally deal with letting go. And so that is one of the themes that we can see from his particular dashas, that it's time to go.
So let me ask you a question. So, he doesn't have a true Kausarpa. And when we talk about Kausarpa,
it's just a hairline. Yeah, it's not it's not in the sense. But let me say this. It's very close.
Mm-hmm. So with that return, what do you think? I mean, a lot of times they explain that, and for people, I did get feedback on this. When we drop these little terms, they want a little bit more explanation. So a Kausarpa yoga is when you have your nodes, right? Rahu and Ketu, north and south nodes of the moon. When all of the planets fall in between those two nodes. And it's explained as being sort of like in the belly of the beast, so you got the mouth, you got the head and the tail of the snake, and all the planets are in between the head and the tail of the snake. And Donald Trump, he almost has one. It's very close.
I would consider it one just because the moon moves so fast.
Yeah.
Right. The moon,
it just popped out there. It's like minutes.
It's just like boom. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the Supreme Being sent back like, I almost got you, right? So it's like that to me still has that feeling, that tone,
mm-hmm.
right? Where everything's lopsided about him, about his career, about money, about savings, about everything. You can see everything's all about that, right?
Yeah.
He don't care about his wife. He don't care about his kids. He don't care about spirituality. He don't care about transforming. All those are 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th houses. Those houses are excluded, and he's lopsided into this particular area that is all about the gains and the things that you can get out of life, right? And so that being lopsided means there is no spiritual recompense.
Yeah.
Right. For him to gain insight from that, it's literally he's locked into himself. And that creates a lot of turmoil in someone's life, because when they lose, they literally lose. They lose a whole great. Trump won't be the same after this.
So is it like, you remember when we were talking, I can't remember what episode, but, we were talking about the Kausarpa yoga, and I brought up the analogy of, in nature, they say the hawks or the eagles, they go and they take their prey and they fly them up real high, and then they drop them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And let them, essentially when they hit the ground, then that's when they come and they eat them.
Yeah. When
that nodal return for Trump, would you say that could trigger that drop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, remember he's in a fifth house dasha. Fifth Lord dasha, right?
Yeah.
Fifth Lord, if we count from the 10th house to the 5th house, is 8 houses away. So he is in that period.
Yeah.
Right? Period. He's in that dasha. Now here's the thing. If he's in a Jupiter dasha, right, the Mula Trikona will more than likely give the first half, and then that the sign that's the own, or whatever other sign there is, gives you the second half of that dasha. Right? So the first half is good, right? Because the Mula Trikona rules the 5th house. But the second house that is ruled, even though it is the stronger house, is the 8th house. So in the second half, right, of the Jupiter Saturn period, right? He should be literally in that phase of, right, coming out. And Saturn, right, same thing. Saturn rules the 11th, which is Saturn rules the 7th, which is a Kendra.
Mm-hmm.
First phase of that is power. Second phase is the 6th house, right? Which then brings challenges, issues, and problems. And that is where you will see, because it's 2018, and from 2018 to 2021 is how many years? 3 years. So
Yeah.
he's at the halfway point now where he's going to descend right into that 6th house period where Saturn is actually playing out in that Bhukti, as the Bhukti Lord. Right. So, and Bhukti is the second. So you have a dasha, a Mahadasha, which is the Jupiter period, and then you have a Bhukti or a Subdasha period, which is Saturn. So major, minor. The major period tells the theme. The minor tells how the theme comes out of the dispensation of that theme. And Saturn, being the dispensation, is cold, is serious, right? It's about what you did or didn't do in the past, things that catch up with you, paying the piper, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So all of that's coming. The chickens come home to roost. That's what it is. And so you can clearly see that this man, right, is phasing out. So from his perspective, and actually, yes, that transit on top of his moon, I was going to talk about that in just a second, but to mention it, that K2 that's on top of his moon, it's within a degree, right, of his moon.
Yeah.
K2, let me tell you what K2 does. K2 strips, right, everything that's non-essential away to leave the bare essence of what it is that you should be focusing on or what it is that you're dealing with. Right, K2 will suck everything, strip everything that's not real, not essential, not fundamental, not core, and leave the essence of what it is that's there. And guess what? It's on the moon. What does the moon rule? Your ability to reflect, your ability to filter reality properly. This man does not filter reality properly. I mean, some of the things he says, okay, great. I'm not a Trump. I don't have a dog in either race, right? But I'm just saying that in reality, right, when you see how this man processes things from a realistic purview, Moon in Scorpio fits him very well because he does not have a sense of balance.
Yeah.
Right. And that K2 is throwing it even further out of balance to making him extreme. Right. To making him go to extremes to get, hey, I'm Scorpio Moon. I'm never going to concede to defeat. So again, showing, right, this is a major crossroad for Mr. Trump. Right? So that is his kind of nutshell. That's his thing, right? Let's look at the vice president, right? A former vice president, Joe Biden. Now, Joe, right, is running a Jupiter Dasha as well, right? But completely different. It's a Dasha Sandhi. Exactly. Dasha Sandhi. But it's a Dasha that's very, 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 very well empowered. Right? Jupiter is in the 9th house exalted.
Yeah.
And it's almost at exaltation degree at 2 degrees, 10 minutes. Exact exaltation is right next door. Right? So that exaltation strength gives him a lot of propensity to have being noticed as being someone that is trustworthy, right? Solid, balanced, right? Morally, have some moral compass, right? That's a lot of what Joe brings. You know, good old Joe, right? Solid Joe. Joe's been here for the whole time. He hasn't, he's been here for 35 years. The whole thing of tried and tested.
Yeah.
Right. Jupiter in the 9th house gives him the image of having that as a backdrop of his tenure. Right? Yeah. So that shows a strong propensity to win versus Trump, right? And I know he's in a Jupiter Rahu Dasha. It's a Dasha Sandhi. Things change in Dasha Sandhis. But think about it. Things change, right? So the change is change. It doesn't say good or bad.
Yeah.
This is change. And I'm suspecting that really the change is going to be very prominent, because when he goes into his Saturn dasha, Saturn's in the 7th house, right? And Saturn's in a Kendra house. It's in a power house, right? It's a pillar house. So being in that position, right, it definitely gives him the ability to have a stable, which is in Taurus, right? Mm-hmm. Taurus is stability. Taurus is structure. Taurus is plotting. Taurus is, right, making sure that the Elysian fields, right, that things are secured, right, that you have what you need.
Yeah.
Rahu is in that position now, and Rahu's transiting over that. So again, showing that in that Saturn dasha, which Saturn's in the 7th, it does rule the 3rd and the 4th house, but it's in the 7th, aspecting the ascendant. It also aspects Jupiter as well. So again, Saturn and Jupiter and Saturn have a direct relationship.
Well,
so
he has a Gaj Kashari.
Yes, he does.
And
absolutely.
That Jupiter dasha has been very good to him.
Absolutely. He was vice president.
He's vice president.
Yeah.
And
so it's not like he's not really he's kind of like an incumbent.
Yeah.
To some degree. So you almost have two incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the powers that be, right? Saturn is in Trump's 6th house. Right? Yes, it is in his 6th house, and it creates a harsha yoga for him. He has a harsha yoga right now. Saturn in the 6th, right? In its own sign. Right? But again, the 6th and the 7th lord, right? The 7th lord is going to take more precedence, right? Because it's a Kendra house, and it co-rules the 6th, but the Kendra is going to take more precedence, even though the 6th house is where it is. So literally, it's not like the 6th, 7th lord being the 6th, but it's empowered through the 7th house. So again, it's not the same. Whereas Biden, it's in the 3rd house for him.
Yeah.
And that's aspecting Jupiter, right? So it's literally it's activating Jupiter at this time to bring him to a level of power, because Saturn is not in the same position, not the 6th lord, even though it does rule the 3rd house it's not a good planet for Scorpio, right? Mm-hmm. It's still it's a better planet than it is for Leo, right? Leo and Cancer, Saturn is the worst planet. So right now, Biden is in a very good position from the heavens viewpoint, right? Not only that, right? He has Ketu, right, going over the ascendant.
Yeah.
Well, Ketu I know is a challenging planet for most, even if it's in a position that does some positive things for you. Nonetheless, right? It creates change, right? It creates sudden differences, right? It says, hey, night, now day, right? There's no gradual anything. So if he's not he's not in power, right?
Yeah.
So what would be the gradual thing that he would experience with K2 moving through his ascendant? It wouldn't be anything gradual. But what would be wouldn't be anything sudden, but what would be a sudden change is him becoming president.
Yeah.
Showing K2 doing its job in that particular position. Remember, K2's conjuncting Trump's moon while it's conjuncting his ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
The moon is not something that you want to have hit by K2. Right? And the moon is the 12th lord, right? For Trump. Whereas this, right, completely different. He himself is experiencing this sudden change, this sudden reorientation of life, this sudden new being that's going to emerge after January of 2021. So showing again, this is a very strong indicator that Biden is going to be the next U.S. president. A few other things, right? And we'll just to mention, right now the sun is in his 12th house, right?
Yeah.
In the 12th. But it is near to or conjuncting Mars, which is his ascendant lord, and it's conjuncting Mercury, or will conjunct Mercury. So during this time period, it almost would feel like suspended animation for him. Like, what's next? Because when the sun goes into Scorpio, he becomes empowered. And literally, that's his birthday.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when people have birthdays, special things kind of, not always, but a lot of times things go well for you. Right? I mean, if you think about it, I got a birthday, so things, right? How many things it happens. I've had some birthdays that were quite interesting, right? Yeah. But for the majority of my birthdays, they've been somewhat, I felt empowered. I felt renewed. I felt, where I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
That is sun will be there, and then before 30 days is up. Right? So think about how that person feels after or during that time when sun was gone, now sun's there. You feel empowered. You feel like you won. You feel like you went through the dark night of the soul, right? That's how we know he's going to win. You can see the tides literally leaning into what he's going to feel and how he's going to feel. And guess what? This will simultaneously mean sun will be in opposition for Trump. Sun will be in opposition to sun, which doesn't do well. The powers that be don't like you when that happens. Everybody goes through it every year. And if you pay attention, when sun's opposition sun, you have problems with your supervisor, with your boss, with your father, the people that are in power. You can see this is what Trump is going to experience when these things transit. See, I don't just go by, you look at everything as it moves, right? Because because just that day, he's going to feel, think about it, Biden's going to feel like, I don't even know what the heck is going on. The 10th Lord will be in the 12th house of loss, of uncertainty, of transition. Right. So again, right, showing, right, this is how it's formulated. So showing again strong propensities for Biden. Right. My prediction, as it's been stated previously, right, and as it stands, this is not hard. People say this is hard to figure out. It really isn't. Not to someone that sees patterns and patterns and patterns. This is not hard for me. Some other astrologers might have issues with it. I already see Biden and Harris winning. But when she was announced, I started looking at it. Then I said, looks like he's going to be the next president, right? So that's Biden, right? And we haven't even talked about the day of inauguration. We're just talking about these things moving along, right, in a certain motion. Now, Biden also has Mars in the 5th house, right? And Mars is his ascendant lord. So he literally feels like, gosh, I'm fighting old battles, right? I'm going back, have to assert myself as a viable candidate. When everyone, right, because Mars is going back. He himself feels like, hey, I got to recapitulate. I got to start the fight again. I got to dig deep. Retrograde makes you dig deep and come out, right? And you can see that's what he's doing. He's digging in, right? Now, when Mars goes direct December, right, he himself will feel, now I'm moving what? Forward. I'm in the swing of things, right? I'm back in the seat. I'm not feeling outside of myself, right?
Yeah.
This all happens in December. Now, when that happens, Mars will move into the 6th house, right? And his moon is where? In the 6th house.
Yep.
And guess where Kamala's moon is? In Aries. Conjoined this.
Yeah.
So I'm just showing, as these planets move, check it out. Mars, if I'm Scorpio ascendant, I'm Mars. I'm moving into the 6th house, and hey, there's a moon there. And the moon is a what? A woman. Right? Right. So when Mars gets there, he already got the woman helping him fight the battle. Right?
And that's in her 11th.
That's in her 11th house. Yeah. You see how it works. Right? So it's showing this is how you're going to see it unfold. Now, when inauguration happens, that Mars will be right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right there. Beautiful. Just beautiful, right? Because it's going to create, now he has a harsha yoga. So you got two guys that got harsha yogas. Which harsha yoga is going to be more powerful? The one with the Scorpio as the ascended lord in the sixth house as the representation of himself fighting alongside a woman. Whoa.
Yeah.
While simultaneously, right, Trump is having these other transits that don't bode well. Right. Now, on election day, his ascendant lord will be what? Debilitated.
Yep.
Do you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm just showing you, right? Over and over, these different ways to look at it. Every which way you turn it, it pretty much shows by, right?
Yeah.
Now let's look at Kamala's transits and a chart, because that's another piece to the puzzle. Now look at her dasha. Look at her dashas. She's in a Rahu dasha, y'all. Y'all heard about Rahu dashas, right? Rahu dashas are like a roller coaster ride, right? Strap in, right?
Yeah.
Well, roller coaster rides go up, don't they?
Yep.
And they pretty fun with the suspense of being vice president until you hit that down, right? And it's a ride for you, but she's on that ride. Rahu is in her ascendant. Rahu in the ascendant, dealing with the second, dealing with the 10th, or any of those lords can bring fame, notoriety, right? It can give you your wildest what? Dreams. And the wildest dreams are centered around her, right? Her image, who she is, what she stands for, right? So showing, again, right, this is a time where both of them, right, are in line to be in power. Now, she's in a Rahu Mercury period. What? Well, what rules Rahu? Mercury. So, again, and where is Mercury?
It's in Libra right now, in 5th house.
Yeah. It's in Libra, and it's conjunct her natal Libra on the day of election. That's power.
Yeah.
Showing again, right? The pattern leans towards Kamala and Biden. Right?
Yeah.
So, and her son is natally debilitated. So on that day, she won't feel like she's out of power.
No, because
she'll feel just as normal as anything else.
She's used to it, yeah.
Right. But when that thing changes, right, then that change, right, is in the Rahu Dasha. So she's going to now she's going to say, oh yeah, now I'm in power.
Mm-hmm.
And this is till 2022, which I suspect in 2022 going to be a whole big ball game change for her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just showing, right, that this is something that is already etched in the heavens, that it's already been, right, foretold, right, that this is something that is taking place. And I mean, people are coming out in record numbers to vote, and this is something of an event, right, for the country. So, and this is all happening during some very strange, unorthodox times where this vote literally will change not only the way the nation is received from the rest of the world, but how we also look at ourselves. How the nation is saying, you know what, we're headed in this direction now. It is true that when Rahu is in Taurus and Ketu is in Scorpio, the theme is to stabilize the virulence of Rahu, right?
Yeah.
And so to stabilize that virulent disposition that Rahu brings, right, is what people are feeling the need for.
Yeah.
And so Saturn being in Taurus, he's got a Scorpio ascendant. K2 is moving through Scorpio. Rahu's moving through the 7th. He is the theme of stabilization and centralization for this crazy Rahu COVID thing that we're dealing with. Right. And so, again, showing a very strong propensity for Biden and Harris. Right. I'm making the prediction Biden and Harris is going to be the next president and vice president. The other thing we want to look at is the nation. Right. What is the nation going through? What are we dealing with as a core group? And when we look at the nation, right, what's going on? Well, first of all, Sun is in the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
5 and 11 deal with politics, right? 5th house, 11th house are political houses. So again, showing politics, right, is in a state of flux because the Sun, right, is debilitated. So that 11th house, the 11th house is groups, social networks, organizations. All of these things are kind of like, what do we do now? What do we choose? Which way do we go?
Yeah.
That's the 11th Sun in the 11th, and Mercury is there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, also creating the conversation and the back and forth dialogue amongst the people in the 11th house of groups, social networks, and so forth. Now, or parties, right? Because a party is nothing but a group. Right? And we know that Sag being a dual sign, everything in this country is polarized, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, not Scorpio, y'all. Right? Sag ascendant. So, going deeper, the 4th house of the country deals with the pulse of the nation. Right?
Yeah.
The homeland security, the homeland's kind of internal milieu. Right? And the internal milieu, that atmosphere in this country is contention, right?
Oh yeah.
It's argumentative, it's combative, right? And that's where Mars in the 4th house, that's what it brings, right? Mars in the 4th house right now, literally, is saying that the homeland, the heart of the people, they're antagonistic, they're combating, right? They're at war with each other, right? One side's Trump, one side's Biden. One side's pro this, one side's pro that. One side is looking to do it in this way, the other side wants to do it this way. That is Mars bringing that fight to the home, to the homeland. And you best believe, I bet you a lot of people in their families, which is the 4th house, are fighting to say, you know what, we want Biden, we want Trump, right? There's this infighting, right, that the nation is feeling. And so when Mars comes out of this particular position, when he comes out in December, as of December 23rd, I'm pretty sure, when he's actually, when he's in Aries, right? Because he'll go direct here soon. Actually, November, I think 17th is when he goes direct, right? 16th or 17th. So when he goes direct, that contention, that backward fighting, right, is going to go forward. And so when it goes forward, it's going to end up going into the natal 5th house of the country. Now, the 5th house, again, is dealing with what? Politics, political structures, political powers, political processes.
Yeah.
Right? So when Mars is in the 5th house, entering into that 5th house, and this will be in December 23rd, right around there, that's when the nation, and that's only a month away from the inauguration. That point is when all of this stuff, right, will be finalized.
Yeah.
Right? Nation will no longer be going back and forth, contention, fighting. Politics, this political structure will have its direction, right? And the people will be waiting for the next inauguration coming, right, which I would foresee might be quite an event. Right? So again, showing, right, the nation is even feeling these things, right?
Yeah.
Now, Pluto, just going back into the 2nd house, right? The economy is about to flip, right? Next year, like I told y'all, next year is the year for the economy to bottom out, not this year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? next year the economy is going to be something to deal with.
Oh yeah.
So all of these things show, right, what we've literally established as that predictive process happening, that particular, that political process happening, with the end result being Biden and Harris as the next president and vice president. Based on all these factors, it is pretty much clear, right, as water.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the D10, right, because I don't need to. Right, the D10 is just a sliver of the actual chart itself. Now, the D10 does give us some indication, and it does show that Biden is still in the position of coming to power. But from what we see, what we see, those are just cherries on top, right, to really finalize and pin, really like hairline, put it into perspective. But I don't need that per se because I can see it from this perspective already.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do that when it's fine tuning, right? When I really want to help someone go into the right direction or see if they're in a direction that leads them into some prominence as far as their profession or what you would call career. But these guys are already established. So their D10 is going to literally read, they're already in power. Every last one of them. There's not one of them that's not in power. So I'm reading it from the perspective of just seeing if the powers that change in the D10, but the D10 is not fundamental to seeing these processes.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. So, as always, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology. Yeah, I think, with this breakdown, man, I think it'll help people to get geared up because either way it go, especially in the short term, we're going to be facing some stuff, either way it go.
Either way, yeah.
But I think, if you're really paying attention to what's going on, it's pretty clear that at the end of the day, look like Joe's going to have it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, even the polls.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying the polls are, because the polls show Trump behind originally, but this is a different day, right? It's just everything's switched, and
Hillary, back then, I don't have her Jyotish.
No one has a good time on her. Yeah,
but I remember looking at her Bazi.
She has all those planets in Libra.
Yeah. But even just looking at the, what we call a 3/4 chart and the Bazi, it just, she don't have it. She has to be appointed, man. I mean, she got the little Senate race, and that's a big thing. But as far as she don't have a vice presidential or presidential type of chart.
No, she doesn't. Yeah. So, yeah, it's clear as glass to me that we're headed in that direction.
Indeed. So, once again, like I said, want to send a special shout out to all the Patreons out there, for all their support and everything like that. And, to all the listeners from all over the world, we got India, the UK, Australia, various countries out in Africa, Congo. Shout out to Pasadena, California, not Pasadena. What's the name of that city out there? Shout out to our listeners in Southern California, we got a lot of people. Lancaster, yep. Lancaster and stuff like Palmdale. Yep, we got a good little grip of listeners out there. Shout out to y'all, man. They've been pretty active, man, and stuff like that. So I definitely appreciate that. And make sure you all follow us on Instagram. Check us out on Instagram. We drop a lot of, different posts and different things like that. New updates and stuff like that. You'll find it there, and follow us on Facebook as well. You're on Facebook, get at us on Cosmic Convos Podcast on Facebook and whatnot. And on both Facebook and YouTube, you can catch the video or whatnot. And, the premiere when we drop the episode. So definitely stay tuned for that. Brother Rod, you got anything else you want to say to the people before we close it out?
No, just use this time to validate the powers that astrology gives us, right? So that you can see, right, that when these things are pronounced, you can take them to the bank.
Indeed. So, with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week on a normal schedule. We're going to drop a little earlier this week, but next week we'll be back on Wednesday. Same time, same place. And everybody stay safe out there. Make sure, you're taking heed to, what we're talking about here and utilizing that to prepare yourself moving forward in the future so you could be on the right side. All right. So that being said, peace.
Peace.